Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight at our Staten Island Borough Huddle. Hope that you were able to run between the raindrops and not get too wet. And this is, as I said before, Citizens NYC's Borough Huddle series, and we're huddling with Staten Islanders tonight. And we are partnering with Kelly Villar, who is probably a legend, a rock star on Staten Island. I'm pretty sure many of you know Kelly. And we're huddling tonight to hear some of the top quality of life concerns in Staten Island that were revealed to Citizens Committee for New York City in our data. And also to just have, a casual and a certainly critical conversation about what you, the huddlers, the Staten Islanders, can do to address some of those quality of life issues. And so without further ado, well, before I do the further ados, I just want to bring you greetings on behalf of our CEO, Dr. Hassan Harris of Citizens Committee for New York City. And again, we are so happy to be partnering with Kelly Villar of the Staten Island Urban Center to bring this conversation to you. And so I'm going to just get right into the first question that I have for Kelly. And it's going to be, of course, framed in the data that Citizens has collected from our last grant cycle. So here we go. Broadly speaking, public safety is on the minds of New Yorkers, and there are 5 pillars to public safety. And those pillars include economic and food security, education and community, housing and physical environment, physical and mental health, and stability and personal safety. And just want to give a hat tip to Kelly because she was with us last week at our one-day conference where the theme was public safety. And we talked about some of these themes as well. And so Staten Islanders have indicated to us at Citizens Committee for New York City that the top 3 quality of life concerns for them are education at about 23%, parks and green spaces and public safety were tied at about 16%, and the cost of living and fresh food were tied also at about 13%. So being a leader in a community, what are some concrete strategies that are being deployed to address some of those concerns?
I think that there's a lot of collaboration that does exist on Staten Island. We are a small town in a lot of ways. I just knew I would know some people that were going to be in the meeting, and I know some people that are in the meeting, so that's really cool. And that works to our benefit. What doesn't work to our benefit is the fact that we lack the resources to be able to deal with a lot of social justice issues that exist on Staten Island. There was a Harvard study done in 2015 that was a study about the poorest counties in the country. And they named Staten Island one of the worst. Wow. Not the worst because we had the most poor people, right? We had the most low income people. We were the worst because it was the worst place to be poor. So that is problematic because that is often something that we can't control. Our education system, I'm proud to say, there's a lot of really great things that are happening in our district. We are a single district, unlike the other boroughs who have several school districts. We're just one block of a district, of a school district. So sometimes that works to our benefit to be able to communicate and get things done. We have a fairly new head of schools superintendent, and who's been promising, the first person of color to be a superintendent ever in the history of Staten Island. So that shows promising, and that's important because when you take a look at the statistics of the student body on Staten Island, it is very black and white, unfortunately. It is, if you're a Black and low income student, typically, especially on the North Shore, the statistics are drastically different than if you are a white middle class student on the South Shore. And that hurts us greatly. You know, the average third grader on Staten Island's North Shore community, where there's mostly brown and Black families, is only at a third grade reading level.
Wow.
And 76% of the third graders are not reading at grade level. So that's really, really, that hurts us dearly, you know? And so there's lots of issues around equity that need to be addressed. I think that there are many things that are happening in our district that are moving in that direction. We have new leadership on the CEC, which is the people that oversee the district, and that includes parents. We have more parents of color now on the district than we've had before. And we're moving towards that. And there's a recognition, and that's the biggest thing. There's a recognition from DOE that there needs to be a change, that there is systemic racism that's built into our school systems, unfortunately, that needs to be addressed and needs to be changed. So it is on the minds of everyone that that's what we need to do. And so as far as education, that's where we got to be. You know, here's another promising thing about our education. We have a robust community of proponents of HBCUs, which is the historically Black colleges.
Right.
In the borough. You know, I was a participant in helping to organize the historically Black college fair here on Staten Island, the only of its kind, only 10 years ago. I think it was about 10 years. And we were expecting, I don't know, maybe like 300 kids to show up, and more than 700 showed up. And then the next year we were expecting, okay, 700, maybe 700 will show up. 1,500 showed up, and it just got larger and larger, and it is unbelievable and brings tears to your eyes when you see all these Black and brown children coming with their parents to an HBCU fair. So that was phenomenal, unheard of, and now it's a part of our fabric of what we do here on Staten Island. There are many, many more examples, but by and large, the fact is that we need resources that we don't have. And we need people outside of our borough to help us get those things. So, and so that's what I would say for education.
So, you know, just interesting. And can you talk to me about what you believe the perception is of folks who are outside of Staten Island as it relates to its demographic makeup?
I think that, well, that's where it begins, its demographic makeup. I think that many times, you know, we get the perception of Staten Island is, the first is, oh, we're the forgotten borough. So, you know, my problem with that is we need to stop acting like it. And we need to become unforgettable. And we need to help direct people to the actual statistics that exist here. You know, they call us the greenest borough. Yeah, we're green, but we have a lot of bald patches of space where mostly Black and brown people live, and there are no trees, you know. So we need to dig deep into those statistics, you know, and help people see that. What most people see is, oh, Staten Island's an all white community and everybody makes, you know, $70,000, $80,000 a year. Not true. You know, Staten Island has the fastest growing Latino population As of the last census, we grew 50%, which is more
Wow.
than any other area. We have the largest Liberian population in the world
Mhm.
outside of Liberia.
Yes.
And we have a robust African community. We have a robust Caribbean community, not just from Puerto Rico, but Dominican Republic, you know, from Haiti, et cetera. And it's amazing to me how people don't see that. I think that if you took a look at all of those things, you would see Staten Island very differently. I moved to Staten Island from another part of the city many, many, many years ago. And I moved here because I thought it was the most diverse. I did not read the papers at the time. And I thought it was the most diverse place ever. You know, my neighbor was Italian. The other guy down the block was Jamaican. My other neighbor across the street was Dominican. And I loved the mix of people that we were. So I never bought into that we were any singular anything, you know. We are a microcosm of the US, of the United States. And we have some issues that are maybe slightly different than the other boroughs, but we have lots of diversity and need to lift that, you know. Our kids, our young people are, you know, multiracial, and you are in all kinds of environments where they're sharing culture and doing things, you know, together. So I think that, you know, people need to understand that they need to look at the small statistics, not just the big borough statistic,
Mhm.
that because they tell two different stories, you
Well,
know.
so when you said, you know, Staten Island needs to make itself unforgettable, I just instantly wanted to cue Nat King Cole. Unforgettable. Right. So,
Yes.
you know, so that's definitely going to take some work. And, you know, just one of the things that I would say as the program's community relations person here at Citizens Committee, we have been trying in so many ways to have more engagement with Staten Island, because you know we understand that there are quality of life issues there as well, um, and so definitely for everybody on this call, or in this huddle rather, I want you to know that Citizens Committee's two grant programs are open, our All in Neighborhood grant and our Neighborhood Business Grant. So I want you to brainstorm a project, definitely talk with Kelly about the grant making process. We also have, we have some information sessions that are happening now, and this is clearly not an information session, but I just want to let you know the grants are open. If there is a project, a quality of life issue that you want to address, grab a couple of friends, figure out what your project will look like, and submit an application. We are definitely trying to get more applications from Staten Island, more engagement with Staten Island, because in some ways, it might be that some of the quality of life issues that Staten Island is experiencing may not be coming across as vividly because of the perceptions that I asked Kelly to weigh in on. So everything isn't all roses. And you know, we're not trying to paint a doom and gloom, but we want to certainly, you know, have a realistic take on what's happening. And so gonna move to the next question for you, Kelly. And so there is much to be said for the power of collective action. And there are many wonderful grassroots community groups who are leading and doing work in their Staten Island communities and neighborhoods to address the quality of life issues that, you know, that we found in the data that we collect. And so how can Staten Islanders partner with other, I guess, community-based organizations, um, and just how can they partner to scale up their work, right? Because sometimes when you pool your abilities, you can have a greater impact, and just in line with, the whole week of action that citizens had last week in our Impact Summit. Talk to us about how Staten Islanders can scale up their work through and have a greater impact.
I think, like the first thing is, we have to kind of get out of our head that I hate to go back to this, but we need to, that we're a forgotten borough. I think that people need to participate in the larger city landscape, because that's the only way that you're going to get seen. If you're seen by the same people in your own community, and they're not the ones that have the resources for you, then, you're doing something wrong. And I want to encourage people to do that. There is a sense that, oh, this is the way it's always been done, or this is the way, my grandfather did it, and that's the way, there is a sense of that here. And I would hope that people would lift that out of their head and realize that, in order to make change, we got to change. I was a member for a couple of years on the local community boards, one of the local community boards here on Staten Island. And, very lovely people, but the issues that I found there were that people, this is the way it goes. This is the way it's supposed to be. And I just felt like we needed to do more questioning. And I'm happy to say that it's changed over the last year or so, a bit. And I'm really happy for that. But Staten Island has several civic organizations that are very active, that have robust membership, that are vocal people. But after you've done the vocalization, and after you shown up at the meeting, you've done the vocalization, now it's time to do something that's not in the confines of a meeting room anymore. Now you have to go somewhere. You either have to go to City Hall, or you have to go to the governor's office, or you have to, stand in front of EPA's office or whatever, and begin to be vocal, almost in their face. I mean, I'm not, and I think that that's just not been the nature of Staten Island, unlike other boroughs. I think it's in our nature to be a little disruptive of stuff, and also to rely so heavily on what political leaders think. I show up to a political leader's office on Staten Island, and, not to play oppression Olympics here, but unlike showing up in an office in the Bronx or even Manhattan and talking to them about climate change, it's a different ballgame. At least I know in the Bronx and Manhattan, we're basically on the same page. Here, we're in the minority when we talk about climate change. So it's a little bit different that way, but that's the reason ever more so to be a visible, vocal voice, and activist in our community. That's the way that we're going to see change. There's such a reliance here on, what the order of the politics are. He who has the highest office runs everything, and I don't buy into that. Many of the young people that I work with don't buy into that. And that's why we're starting to make change, and we're starting to help. And we want to help other groups do the same thing. It's not just us, there are other groups that are doing the same thing, and are starting to see results. And I'm really happy for that. I'm happy that Staten Islanders are sticking up their heads and and being vocal, about different issues, because we have to be. I'll go back to that report in 2015 from Harvard University that said Staten Island was one of the worst, not the worst, one of the worst places to be poor, one of the worst places to be when you need stuff, when you need resources. That's real important.
And to hear that, there's a saying, and I do not know to whom or it is attributed or from whence it comes, but I have heard it said that so nobody should ever be poor, particularly in a place that is just so bountiful. But if you're going to be poor, I have heard it said, it's better to be poor in a place like New York than in, say, a developing country. Because when the lights go out in a developing country, you have to wait until morning for the sun to come up. But at least here in a place like New York, when it gets dark, even if you live in a multi-dwelling sort of a building, as long as nobody has done anything to the grid, you're going to have lights, right? And so, I mean, it's just, to me, very interesting to hear, Staten Island be characterized in such a way, because that's the visual that comes to me. And to your point, it is up to, I guess, the folks of Staten Island to start the process of moving from invisible to visible, right? Mm-hmm. That's, I did a documentary around that phrase when I was a doctoral student. And one of the ways you move from invisibility to visibility is by exercising your right to be in the public square. Right. There was once upon a time, according to, Hagen Jerbermas talks about the public square, and there were certain people who were excluded from the public square. But now that people have access to the public square, in a lot of ways, the only way you go from being invisible to visible is the politicization of what your challenges are. Mm-hmm. Right. And that speaks to the collective action of gathering together in a public place, such as the public square, to take up space, to be disruptive in a way that you get the right people's attention. And so hopefully people will be energized by this and do that, because if the mindset is, oh, this is the way it has always been, then that will be the way that it will always be, if you don't, work to take your own destiny into your own hands. And so my final question, right, this is a beautiful segue. There are Citizens NYC grant winners who have gone on to elected or appointed office, such as yourself. You indicated you served on the community boards in Staten Island. And there are some who have gone on to have leadership roles in New York City agencies. So talk to us about what your why is for one, having chosen to seek an appointment when you did to the community board that you served on, and also what is your why for being such a public citizen, if you will, and what advice would you give to those thinking about maybe pursuing an appointed office, or just showing up in a more prominent way to try to move away from the mantra, this is how it has always been done?
I think, thanks for that question, Leslie. I was actually born and raised in Harlem. and moved to Staten Island a very long time ago because of the cheap real estate, honestly. And it was my bedroom community. It was a place where I went, I slept, and I went back to Manhattan, and that's where I lived and did everything. And then when my son was born, I suddenly realized that I don't know anything about Staten Island other than how to get to the ferry and back home. And it made me realize all of a sudden I needed to find out, okay, where's the hospital? Oh, we don't have one. Oh, where's the park? There really aren't too many in my neighborhood. Oh, where's the school? Oh, by the way, the school that your son is going to probably go to, the average reading score of, those young people is, like only 26% of them know how to read.
Mm.
Oh, and so it just went on and on. And suddenly I found myself just engaged in helping to make it better. Suddenly I needed resources, and I realized there was tons of people that needed resources, not just me.
Hmm.
Fast forward a couple of years, Eric Garner gets killed. And the what gelled up was the racism and the acknowledgement finally that there was systemic racism here, that there was an issue with that.
Hmm.
There were just so many, moments like that, then Breonna Taylor, gets killed, and women from Staten Island come out of the woodwork, just saying, damn it, hell no, like that can't happen. And I got so proud of those moments because it helped me realize, and I think helped lots of us realize, that there was a lot of work to be done on Staten Island, and that it was possible to get done, that it was possible to have a rally, it was possible to have a movement of people that would work together, that it gave us a little bit of hope. Now there's tons of issues. I mean, we have Gabriella Velarde Ward here, who has been doing a yeoman's job on on many environmental justice issues, especially as it relates to the wetlands that are really being destroyed here on Staten Island in a lot of different ways by developers. And it's the only protection that we've had from devastations like Hurricane Sandy. So we have that happening. We have this movement going on, and it just needs to grow. And it is starting to grow. We have more nonprofit organizations on Staten Island that are starting to access resources other than an elected official's discretionary pot of money. They're starting to find that that there is much more out there that can support them. And that to me is being on the right track for that. I do this because not so much, I do this because I feel that there needs to be a raising of social consciousness here in this borough, that too often that we've thought about the things that are happening here and accepted them as facts, or accepted them as that's the way it is and there's no change in that. And I can't, I can't operate that way. I've always believed in the possibility of what we can do, and, helping other people. And that's one of the reasons that we started the Staten Island Urban Center, is we are teaching young people that you can roll up your sleeves and you can help solve the community's problems, that we are a part of the solution, and we don't have to go ask other people to solve the problems for us, that we can actually create the movement that's going to solve those problems. And, and that's what we're constantly working toward, and building and building on that.
So I absolutely love that, because that is, those are, I guess, the mantra and the founding words, if you will, of citizens, rolling up your sleeves and let's just get to work, because at one point, the federal government turned its back on New York City in the mid 1970s, and rather than just lay down and roll over, some citizens decided to roll up their sleeves and say, you know what, okay, this is how they feel. We're not going to just feel sorry for ourselves and boo-hoo. And that's the grit, the stick-to-itiveness that I love so much about New Yorkers. And you have grit, and I'm pretty sure all of the folks on this huddle tonight have grit, and it's really about coming together to brainstorm strategies for how to manage your challenges. And really, at the end of the day, that's what culture is. Culture is the sum total of how societies manage the challenges that they are faced with. And, those challenges change. But if you refuse to acknowledge that things have changed, and you cannot stay stuck doing things the way that you did them, because at that time they were a very useful stopgap, you're going to get stuck. So definitely thank you for that. I'm going to now spotlight Gabriella Velarde Ward. Did I say that right, Gabriella?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to add you to the spotlight so you can address your questions to Madam Kelly Villar, or if the two of you want to engage in some back and forth about your mutual project that I believe Kelly mentioned that you two are working on. That would be great.
Can I just say something about Gabriella very quickly? Gabriella is someone who has taught me a lot about environmental justice and a lot about climate change, and has raised the flag here on Staten Island to start, fighting for our natural spaces, and comes from a very interesting background in being able to do that. And one thing about Staten Island that I didn't get to say, Leslie, that everybody should know, is the part that I'm proudest the most of Staten Island is its volunteerism and ability. People here volunteer so quickly to help out, do something, to be able to, work with others. And maybe it was out of necessity because we weren't funded to do it, but people do it all the time. And Gabriella has brought together so many people to save our wetlands, and to be able to, save some of our communities from drowning because of, storm surges. So I'm sorry, Gabriella. Tell us about what's on top of your mind, Gabriella, in terms of like what people need to
I'd
know
like to
right
make two
now.
comments first.
Okay, go ahead, go for it.
The first one is that the Western countries consider many countries poor, but they're resource rich, except the resources are not accessible to the people who are quote unquote poor.
Right.
And that's true in Staten Island too. Staten Island has lots of resources, but it's being taken away from us. We have land where the rest of New York does not. We have wetlands when the rest of New York does not. We have access to the water, which is also being taken away from us, which lots of areas in the rest of New York do not have. And I want to give you an example of being invisible. 24 plus people died in undocumented, and they were not counted. And 24 plus, but every time I hear anybody talking about Hurricane Sandy on the radio or wherever else, they never mention Staten Island, and half the people that died in Hurricane Sandy came from Staten Island. So those are the two things that I just wanted to mention first. We're losing access to the water. As you can see, we're a small island, and we have advantages and disadvantages to being a small island. The advantages are being stolen really from us. I live in Graniteville, which is 60 to 70% people of color. And we had a wetland, the Graniteville wetland right across the street from us. Lots of people moved here because of that wetland. It was a forested wetland, lots of animals, beautiful. We don't have another open green space at all. And we fought for the Coalition for Wetlands and Forests, fought for protecting that wetland for 4 years before we lost it in the summer of 2021. And I had been saying for 4 years that if we lose it, we were going to be flooded. And I was called using scare tactics in the paper. We've been covered a lot in the papers. And I kept saying, if we lose the wetland, we're going to be flooded. And the response was that I was using scare tactics. Well, we lost the forest. They cut down the trees and compacted the soil this summer of 2021. And by August 31st, 80% of it was gone. On September 1st, we were flooded for the first time ever. And lots of damage. The house on the corner right across the street from them had $55,000 worth of damage to his home, etc. There are many things I can tell you there. I was, yeah, so we lost it, and now we're not giving up. We're not letting go of this, because we're demanding accountability, and we're demanding protection for Graniteville, because we will be flooded again with climate change, sea level rise, especially. And sea levels are going to rise faster than anybody knows, because the ice sheets that are breaking off on the Arctic and the Antarctic are melting in warm oceans. And so the sea levels rise is going to happen sooner than anybody's talking about. So we will be flooded again. And now, in addition to that, there is we had 18 acres of wetland there, and we lost that. There is another area right near us, right next to us, that they're taking 90 acres of wetland, 90 acres of wetland, and building on that. It's right on top of Arthur Hill, and it's right next to our tidal wetland, which is Old Place Creek. And because of sea level rise, if they build high, we are going to be flooded, definitely. But we may be flooded anyway if the sea levels are rising. So it's so unfair, and I can't help but say it's because of the community is Black and brown. That's why they can let this get away with this. We have tremendous air pollution. We have the expressway right on top of the homes. We have across the Arthur Hill, we have Newark Airport, and we have Chemical Coast, which is the chemical refineries in Bayway, in New Jersey, but the prevailing winds come in this direction. So we have lots of COPD, we have lots of asthma, we have lots of cancer, and they can continue dumping on us, So this is one of the many things in my life that brought me to this and to a diverse community. But one of the things was that I supervised construction. I'm an architect, designer, as well as a construction supervisor. And I was supervising construction at Midland Beach, Staten Island, before, during, and after Hurricane Sandy. So I saw a lot. I saw what happened. I saw the devastation that happened and people's lives destroyed. And I said, I'm not going to, when I heard about this, that they're going to destroy the 18 acres of wetland that saved us during Hurricane Sandy. We were not flooded because of that. But I said, no more. It's not going to happen here. Anyway, I'll take a breath.
But I think you could see, Dr. Leslie, that, after Hurricane Sandy, I mean, Staten Island should have been the poster child for climate change. And that did not happen.
Yes.
Yes. We should have been the recipient of droves of money that were going to be directed to doing things to shore up our wetlands and make sure that, that we became an adaptable state, that we became an adaptable waterfront. And that didn't happen, and today still the number one environmental justice issue is education. We are still in a space where people don't even know what they don't know. So that's why I invest lots of time and lots of my energy in raising the social consciousness of people, because that is what's going to change things.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I like that approach because when people think about environmental justice, they only think very narrowly about climate change. But if justice doesn't happen in even constructed environments that are socially constructed, not only those, but in the natural environments, things just, equity just not, does not abound. You know, and Gabriella, I love the analogy that you made about um, how a land can be resource rich, but if those in power, you know, just pillage those resources, and then the
Yeah.
distribution is
people-
not equitable. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just bad. You know, so I think
To
we
give you
really
an
need to,
example,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
it's okay. To give you an example of that, there are 20 blue belts on the South Shore of Staten Island. How many are on the North Shore? Zero. Zero. Blue belts are intended to protect people from climate change, from flooding, and there are zero
Wow, that's
on the
just,
North Shore.
that's disheartening for sure. So, you know, my hope is that we will get more grant applications from the folks of Staten Island, not only the community grants, but the neighborhood business grants as well. And Kelly, not to volunteer you, but because you have been a successful grant recipient, you know, I'm, you know, just welcoming folks to chat with you as a leader in your
Absolutely.
community about how to put
Yeah.
together the application, because one of the things we look at or look for in our community in our community grant is civic engagement. How are you going to bring community along? Not just one individual doing a project, but how are you going to get buy-in and engagement and participation from the folks who are experiencing the challenges that you yourself are facing, right?
Absolutely. You know, and I want to shout out somebody who's in the room, which is Jacqueline Caruso from BU. And you know, the B University is one of the newest things that we've been doing here on Staten Island. And Jacqueline is, you know, working with the people in the forefront of all of that. And that to me is like the future, you know. So I think that we need more opportunities for people to learn about our environment, you know, our waterfront, you know, even, I mean, I could go on all day long, Leslie, about, you know, the things that I think Staten Island needs. But I'll go back to, again, you know, it's the consciousness. It is social consciousness and raising the social consciousness of people so that people can act. Because if they don't have an awareness, if they don't have a feeling that they could actually hope or change something, then it will always stay the same. And there's so many wonderful possibilities for Staten Island, you know, so I don't want to make it sound all gloom and, you know, gloomy here, but there are lots of wonderful possibilities for Staten Island. I think that, you know, a project like what Jacqueline's doing with running Bee University, which is teaching people about bees and the importance of bees in our community, doing projects that are educating folks on, you know, about the wildlife, about blue belts and things like that, about climate change, about waterfront, even something as simple as swimming. Leslie, you would think that we would, you know, we live on an island.
Well, yeah.
Our major mode of transportation is a ferry. And we have less swimming programs in this borough than anywhere else in New York City. It is ridiculous how difficult it is for a family of modest means or low income means what they can't, they don't have access to swim lessons. And I think it's an important thing to know, especially if you live on an island and the major mode of
Oh, yeah,
transportation
for
is
sure.
third.
For
You
sure.
know, we need to, so it's things like that that really need to be addressed. And so we're down with doing all kinds of, things to help people, see that, help people wake up to the possibilities, and then help them act on what those possibilities are. And that's what our organization is truly focused on.
Well, I mean, so this has, to my mind, been amazing. And I just want to thank everybody who, took time out of their evening to huddle with us, to discuss some of the quality of life issues that you as Staten Islanders have identified, and to, brainstorm ways about how you can show up and to, make yourselves visible in a way that people will not ignore you. Michelle will take your question, and then we will pronounce the benediction and call it a night so folks can get some supper and spend time with their families. Michelle.
Hi, everyone. This was very, very nice. I was wondering, how do I get in touch with Kelly and Gabriella?
Well, I just put my information in the chat. I put my email in there. So feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help anyone. We 2 local businesses in our area on the North Shore. You're probably familiar with them, but Everything Goes Cafe and Against the Grain Barbershop were both recipients of the business grant. So that's really encouraging. And there's tons of organizations on Staten Island that have received the neighborhood grant. So
I got a neighborhood grant for my community garden in
nice.
19. They give a lot of food that's grown to Project Hospitality. So I'm on a cell phone. I don't have a computer, so I have to go into the chat to get the email.
Oh, okay. So it's Kelly at siurbancenter.org.
Kelly at siurban center is spelled out.
Yeah, center is spelled out .org.
.org.
And Gabriella, do you want to audibly say your email address?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. Yeah, I put it in the chat, but I understand, Michelle, you don't have a computer, so I'll say it. It's SI as in Staten Island, CWF as in Coalition for Wetlands and Forests, 2017@gmail.com. And I'll say it again. S as in Sam, I, CWF as in Frank, 2017@gmail.com. That's my email.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right. So again, this has been time well spent. Thank you for, Kelly being in conversation with us tonight. And thank you, Gabriella, for chiming in and raising awareness about, what's going on Staten Island. And that is just not right, right? And so to everyone on this call, make sure you consider putting in an application for a project so you can be considered for a grant from Citizens Committee for New York City. Think about ways that you can raise the visibility of yourself and your community so you can move from being invisible to visible, and getting the requisite amount of attention on the quality of life issues that you are experiencing and are facing. And this has been time well spent. And from everybody's favorite moderator, Dr. Leslie Branch, signing off until next time. Have a great,
Definitely our favorite. Thank you.
you're
Thank
welcome.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night.